And last Wednesday, I have been speaking about wisdom and, our capacity to open to the unformed, to the plain potential of what arises, what comes next, to that aliveness. We can, sense into if we remember it. And, wisdom in the English language can mean different things, such as knowledge or learning, erudition, soundness of judgment, etc. But in the context of the Buddha's teaching, wisdom is called panya, and in that context, it is not a body of knowledge, but more a capacity, a faculty, such as intelligence. It's an approach to our experience. It's more a verb, not a noun. And the best way to understand what it is, wisdom is our innate faculty to recognize truth and significance, in an intuitive way. A sensitivity to be affected by reality. And reality cannot be captured in words. But, words can help us to turn towards our experience, but then it needs to be sensed with this faculty. And, the word panya in Pali or prajna in Sanskrit consists of two parts. The prefix pra means before, and nya means knowledge. So before knowledge sets in, before we, project a story on top of our experience, that way of knowing, that's what is considered panya or wisdom. So it's an active quality, a verb rather than a noun. And, our work together here on the Wednesdays is to sense into the aliveness of our bodies, with the knowing that they are fully embedded in the web of life, in the biosphere. And we can simply, check it out if we reflect on eating, drinking, breathing, going to the bathroom. So, bringing that observation really close, because normally if we don't intentionally bring it up, it escapes us because of the way how we are conditioned to think. So in that way, we come to see ourselves differently, and then if we see ourselves differently, we also come to see our world differently. And that's very, very connected. We cannot see our world differently if we don't see ourselves differently. That's why the practice has to start with us. By cultivating this expansion of perception that allows a fresh seeing. And in that way, a more intimate relationship with ourselves and our world. But then in order to really respond to what we are seeing, we need a second quality, and that is saddha, or faith, trust, confidence in the Pali language. So they belong together, wisdom and faith, because we can't simply, throw off habitual structures of thinking without having that additional weight of faith and trust behind us. So the way, to be able to fully respond to panya, to wisdom, to what is seen, we need that faith as well. Because at some point, we need to let go of something. We need to give into what is known by panya. And this is exactly, what's difficult, I think. That to have the strength of mind to really live from the place we are knowing to be true, to really enact that. And if I take a knife as an example for that, wisdom would be the sharpness of the blade, and faith is the weight of the blade. So if you have like say a very sharp razor blade and you'd like to cut a loaf of bread, it's gonna be very difficult because there's not much capacity to put weight onto the work. So Panya senses and feels out truth and significance, and Sada allows it to ripple out throughout our being, throughout our life, to fully respond. And as we are doing this, then of course all kinds of emotions are coming up: fear, anxiety, hesitation, and or excitement, and all of those different patterns get activated. And then if there's enough faith and confidence, then we can stay with that, we can hold it and allow it to be metabolized and freed up from this old patterning. So Panya or wisdom is a sensitivity which recognizes the real, and Sada is a confidence, a responsiveness, then to really let go of these old patterns of what we think who we are or who we not, what we can't do or what we can do. And in that way, like a bird, we need both wings, wisdom and faith, in order to fly, in order to take off into a more informed way of living our lives. So that's important to remember, that those two need to work together. And now let us just find a posture we can sustain for about 45 minutes for meditation. And and reflecting on your motivation, what draws you to practice, what draws you to do this practice and look at your experience in this way. There must be already a certain amount of faith there, because otherwise you wouldn't even invest your time in this way. There must already be some confidence, that there is a way to respond and to relate to the challenges which are upon us at this point in history, and the disorientation and uncertainty we all experience right now. So just allowing that to be felt, most likely in the torso, and at the same time with the out breath, spreading out your awareness throughout the whole body and even a little bit beyond the body. And really landing here and sensing the weight of the body where it meets the cushion, the chair. And letting go of any stress. Just letting it flow down into the ground beneath where we are sitting. And sensing into the vastness, the stability of the earth. And in that way we can co-regulate, with the earth body from which our own bodies have emerged and are constantly nourished and kept alive in that way. So letting go of any stressful energy in the body, letting it drop down and breathing up the stability and stillness. And knowing we are all together in this. And trusting that we can connect with this greater metabolism of the biosphere through our bodies. A biosphere which knows what to do since a very long time. And sensing into this aliveness, the vibration, the scintillation, the hum of aliveness. Which is a kind of data flow which we can connect into in this way without putting a story on top of it. That's that direct being affected by reality as it is experienced in these bodies, these human bodies at this point in time. and allowing that direct communication to rewire us, because that's what's needed right now. And there's many different levels of connecting with that work, and this is the one on this very energetic level. Not by thinking about it, but by really receiving it, being responsive, allowing it to rewire us. And holding the communication open by sensing into the body in this way, and allowing that in our mind, allowing the possibility, being open to that this is possible, imagining a different way of being a human being. As we are now in a threshold situation where we are asked to evolve, to evolve some capacities which are dormant. And which will enable us, to live more in congruence with the biosphere. Weaning ourselves off from living in an overshoot culture. With all of the different, addictions to mainly, fossil fuels seem to be the central issue here. And we are all complicit in it, of course. And it's not about guilt, it's not about shame, it's just about recognizing it and allowing us to sit in that recognition together out of devotion, out of reverence for this moment. As this truth, becomes more conscious. And whatever it is you sense and feel, just breathing into that with a lot of care and kindness. And allowing, and also reflecting on that urge to evolve. The wish to really participate and, starting where we are. But nevertheless, starting it. Coming into communication and offering our participation and turning towards it with the Buddha's teaching as our support and our human, Homo sapien lineage and all other beings, which have led to that emergence of our species, all behind us. We stand on their shoulders. So we are not alone in this. Even we might sometimes feel like that. So, bringing up the image of all of those beings behind us. The Buddha's teaching, the Buddhist lineage. And we are all together in this. With the in-breath, sensing the wish, to evolve. To be part of that long, long lineage. And, providing for future generations the same support we have received to become adults, to get that far in our lives. So with that wish, with that intention, motivation, that nourishes our standing power to be there, to look at that which is kind of confusing and with a lot of uncertainty. And knowing, we are not alone in this. This is how evolution operates. And we can consciously align ourselves with that. And offer, our awareness, our cooperation, our devotion to this vast process. And, in that way, decentering our own human story and becoming one with the story, of this web of life. is a different way of looking. And it immediately, offers more spaciousness. So what is this moment revealing to me? About myself, about, where I am with all of this. And about my wish, to evolve. And how can I hold both of this? And just keep on standing at that edge. I'm getting used to that edge. So sensing into that edge, is the edge of that which is revealing itself to us, this energetic aliveness. And then really staying with that, whatever it brings up in us, that requires faith, that requires confidence and trust. at a time where there is a lot of endings, endings of certain ideas and views, and the beginnings of new possibilities, just very, very faint beginnings. We can see if we look at the situation in a different way than just from looking at it in terms of a human being, and human being as a dominator species on this planet. If we are willing to look in a different way, then we are going simply through a very steep learning curve right now, with all of the uncertainties that brings. So, sensing the aliveness throughout the body, and the heaviness, the bones in the body, earth element. Earth element in the body, in the bones, and earth element externally in the mountains and the rocks and the concrete of the cities, being exactly the same earth element. This earth element, you're being recycled over and over again, going through many different bodies and formations over deep time. And then, sensing the wetness in the mouth, the water element. This body is made up 75% of water element. Water element internally in the body, and water element externally in the lakes and the rivers and the oceans, and the rain being exactly the same water element. particularly the water element in the area where we live, we are part of that flow. This, way of looking needs to be cultivated. We have lost that because we have emphasized other ways of looking. And now we are called to change that. Then feeling the warmth, maybe under your buttocks where you're sitting. Fire element, which comes to us from the sun, photons raining down on us, and also coming from the center of the earth, the liquid center of the earth. These bodies, can only live in a certain temperature range. Seeing the wonder of these bodies, the mystery of this life of ours. So many things need to line up for this to happen. And then the wind element, breathing in and breathing out, expansion and contraction. And space element, with the out breath, letting go into the spaciousness which doesn't end at the walls of the room we are sitting in. Our lives, being held in this mystery. And letting go into that mystery. and opening to it and being changed by this opening to it. As old ways of looking are dissolving, new ways of looking are emerging. And this is what evolution is. And it's like when we learn to walk as little children, toddlers, as it's called toddling, because it's not learned in just a moment or two. We need to go through the process and mature into that potential which is there. And the same with this. It's a process. And the willingness to stay with it is the most important capacity, that willingness, that trust, and this allowing to be changed. To however much we can lend ourselves to that process with whatever gifts we have to offer into it. I brought a quote which was, landing in my inbox from David Loy, and it's a quote by Tom Rivet Karnak, and it goes like that. You have the biggest opportunity in all of human history to live an incredibly meaningful life. The actions that you take because of the accident of the time of your birth are of an order of magnitude in importance compared to most people who have lived before, because you're going to affect the future of life on Earth in 50, 500, and 500,000 years by what you do in the next couple of decades. So no one is asking for an easy life. Really deep down, we are asking for a meaningful life. Just gonna read it a second time. You have the biggest opportunity in all of human history to live an incredibly meaningful life. The actions that you take because of the accident of the time of your birth are of an order of magnitude in importance compared to most people who have lived before, because you are going to affect the future of life on Earth in 50, 500, or 500,000 years by what you do in the next couple of decades. So no one is asking for an easy life. Really, deep down, we are asking for a meaningful life. So allowing that to sink in, not to pressurize any one of us to save anybody or anything, but to connect with this opportunity. So just sensing into the body, and can you feel that urge, to evolve? Can you feel that calling? Can you intuit that? The truth and significance, which is calling us. And then the capacity to go with that, to allow that to spread out through our lives. That's the process, we can consciously be part of. By, looking at ourselves in a different way. No longer as top of the species living here on this planet, but being part of a big network of the web of life. And finding out what is our contribution to that. Out of devotion, out of respect, out of love for all of us, past, present, and future. and into that openness, into that reverence, into that devotion, allowing whatever comes, whatever calls us, allowing that to spread out through our lives. Even if it's challenging, that's, we start where we are. So in a minute or so, I'm going to ring the bell, and then please take your time to slowly open your eyes and coming back into the room, connecting with others who are here, who are together with us on this path.